As of December 2020, the Pixel 2 series has been no longer supported officially by Google, which rounds off 3 full years of software support for the former flagship smartphone. But what kind of mark has this device left on the Android space? And was this peak Pixel? Well, we're going to take a long-term look at the Pixel 2 XL. Thanks for watching 9 to 5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe, and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. Arguably the most striking of the entire Pixel series to date has to be the Pixel 2 XL in that panda black and white colorway. It's a standout, a real winner for Google in terms of device awareness. There really aren't that many Android smartphones that look like the black and white Google Pixel 2 XL, and I can instantly see why people have found it so endearing, even some 3.5 years after release. I'm not sure why, but that orange power button also adds another endearing quality that even the Pixel 4 with its own black and white variant hasn't quite captured in the same way. I do hope that Google continues to add these playful little touches into future Pixel hardware, as it's a neat little differentiator that really does hold up time after time. It's also strange to think that the aluminium chassis with a plastic coating on the Pixel 2 XL would essentially return with the Pixel 5 some 3 years later. There's a certain feel from metal that kind of can't quite be replaced even with textured glass. It's cold to the touch, abrasive, and in many cases kind of lightweight. Dents and dings are more easily felt, but give me a dent over a crack on the backplate of a smartphone any day of the week. Disappointingly though, an IP67 rating isn't enough to consider the Pixel 2 XL truly watertight or safe from a dip in a pool or a deep puddle. This might not be a big deal, but with newer models it is nice not having to worry about water damage when it's damp, or even if you want to take some underwater photos, which some of the newer devices are capable of. Design wise, we have to say Google struck a timeless classic look that is instantly recognizable and endearing to fans on top. If anything, it has aged better than any recent Pixel design, and the upcoming Pixel 6 looks like it might offer a little bit of the Nexus series and a hefty sprinkling of the Panda 2 Pixel 2 XL, that is. And in that sense, it is hard to argue that the 2 XL is peak Pixel in terms of a design standpoint, at least as we say from a look and feel perspective. Let's talk about display issues, as the noticeable blue shift when holding the Pixel 2 XL at an angle still persists. This is something that I actively went searching for, but it remains a fairly substantial problem. Move the device slightly off axis by just a few degrees and anything on your screen will look slightly off color and is dipped into a blue hue. Some software updates have lessened the problem, but overall it's something that has blemished what, from a direct front-on view, is a fairly nice looking AMOLED display. By 2021 standards, there is now a lot of bezel on show here, but it doesn't look bad in any major way. Plus there are front-facing stereo speakers, which is a pièce de resistance on this device. I must say I would happily lose a little portion of my future smartphone displays just to regain front-facing stereo speakers. It's a really nice to have sound fired towards you rather than out at 90 degrees into your surroundings. What's more impressive in some ways is that the Pixel 2 XL doesn't even have the best speakers out there. It's just a much nicer experience when the audio is pointing towards your face. It's starker when compared directly with the latest Pixel 5, which has a fairly poor under display speaker and bottom firing speaker combo. It does kind of put that to shame. So back at launch in 2017, the Pixel 2 XL came with the highest end specifications you could find on a 2017 Android smartphone. This has stood the device in good stead to last longer than many other smartphones released during the same time frame. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 chipset and 4GB of RAM places the Google Pixel 2 XL towards the lower end of the 2021 mid-range smartphone spectrum in terms of raw benchmarks. That's pretty impressive given how far the top end has accelerated in recent years. Slapping in the highest end internals available at the time does mean that the creep of existence isn't quite as detrimental as it would be with moderate internals, that is for sure. One big gripe will undoubtedly be though the base 64GB of internal storage is not expandable in any way. However, it's only a sore point if you are a data hoarder or take tons of high resolution photos and 4K UHD videos. Sure, you can install mountains of apps, but for most people we'd have to say 64GB is a fairly good sweet spot, even if app sizes are expanding. It was even more impressive by 2017 standards, when many smartphones were still hugging 16 and 32GB of base storage. A lack of a micro SD card expandability has been a point of contention, and it does sting, especially as many other devices of the same era continue, or at least came with the option. As for the software and the experience day to day, for me the biggest noticeable difference is in loading speeds and when using applications and loading portions of Android 11 compared to newer hardware. I'm sure this is not just down to one single hardware component, but the full combination of 4GB of RAM and that aging Snapdragon 835 chipset seems to be a sore point. What's more, the Pixel 5's Snapdragon 765G has a lower memory bandwidth while retaining the same UFS 2.1 storage, but with 8GB of RAM, is capable of holding more apps in memory, or at least it has been in my experience. This does have a detrimental effect on the day-to-day usability. App hangs do seem to be more common, but that doesn't mean daily performance is bad per se. It's actually pretty darn good. Considering this is a smartphone from 2017, I'd say I'd put it on par with the Pixel 4a in terms of the core feel, but in some areas it can feel a step behind. As I've said, it's very close to the Pixel 4a, but the newer device manages a little better in some areas, likely owing to the enhanced software development and support from Google, or at least that, given it's a key device here in 2021, Google will make sure it is running the best it possibly can, given the lack of powerful internals. With Android 11 as the most up-to-date stable release of the mobile OS installed here, you don't feel too left out, at least for a little while longer before Android 12 arrives. A big bonus is that since Android 10, the gesture navigation actually lets you regain a faint sliver of display real estate because of the switch away from the on-screen buttons. If you like watching movies and videos, regaining an extra few millimeters is always really nice after having a portion allotted to on-screen buttons that can't be moved or removed. And then on top of that, because the rooting process is just so dang easy, being able to throw a custom ROM on the Pixel 2 XL actually means a level of long-term support is available with some caveats. It wouldn't be anything like you've become accustomed to. A true hardware holdout though may want to turn to something like Lineage OS to keep hold of the Pixel 2 XL for longer. It's one of the biggest third-party ROMs and offers nightly builds to keep your device running long after it has been left in the dust by Google's own software teams. It's also definitely worth mentioning that this device comes with the excellent Active Edge squeeze gesture for the Google Assistant, and it was introduced on the Pixel 2 series. We've since seen it disappear in favour of voice activation and potentially new gestures in Android 12, but it really is fantastic, and the haptic feedback style approach I think is sorely missed on made by Google devices as of 2021, and we'd really love to see it return. We can't talk about a Pixel and not mention the camera, as of course the original Pixel camera was sublime, but the Pixel 2 and 2 XL took things to another level. I can honestly say that while things can be a little bit hit or miss, still images are just about hanging there on the Pixel 2 XL, more so than I initially expected they would. My fairly brief experience will never quite match that of many of you out there watching, especially if you've had this device since launch, but I can only speak from my own point of view, and I do understand that camera issues have been rife in recent years, with shutdowns, lockups, and more plaguing some aging hardware out there. I can't speak from a place of experience, but I have to say this isn't a great look. Google has suggested that some of the issues are related to camera hardware failures rather than software problems, meaning that updates might not even be able to resolve some lingering problems if you are planning on holding onto this device for longer than expected. The Google Camera app update still might be able to provide a sliver of hope though to some of you affected, but when the Pixel 2 XL camera works, I'm still thoroughly impressed with what it can do around 85% of the time, and that's very good given the age of the Sony IMX362 sensor and its drawbacks and limitations. The addition of the excellent night sight and enhancements to portrait mode only elevate the post-launch camera above most, if not all, affordable Android devices still released in late 2020 and now in early 2021, and that's probably one of the biggest compliments I can pay the Pixel 2 XL camera at this stage, the ability to hang in there with many devices using far superior sensors and with even added focal lengths. I've taken photos and been more than happy with the end result is what I'm saying. At first glance it's really hard to discern just what has changed and how things have improved year over year unless you see them side by side. As for lifespan, I don't want to delve too much into battery performance on a 3-year-old device, as my experience almost certainly won't mimic yours, especially on what amounts to a brand new smartphone, which is what you see here. Not having wireless charging for me is a sore point, as I do have multiple charge pads dotted around my home. Wireless charging brings about degradation concerns though, while the aluminium construction was only recently solved with some neat engineering on the Pixel 5, so it's not too much of a loss, all things considered. I would suggest though disabling the always on display feature and the constant listening feature for the Google Assistant, as this can help squeeze a little extra life out of the Pixel 2 XL every day. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 has been superseded as well by many mid-range processors in terms of power efficiency. Then you mix in the natural battery degradation, and being completely honest, you might have a bad time if you were considering picking this device up. For what it's worth though, the 3520 mAh battery manages to see me through a day with around 4 hours of screen on time. It's not mind-blowing, but it's still more than enough for me to not have to worry too much about finding that 18-watt charge brick and cable before the end of a busy day. Throw in some video streaming and that figure can decrease as low as 2 or 3 hours. I will say it's understandable though on a nearly 4-year-old device, as battery degradation does take its toll. The worrying aspect though here is that changing out and replacing that battery is not an easy task and can take a couple of hours or more if you're inexperienced. Because of the risk of bricking your device, an approved battery replacement from somewhere like Ubreak iFix is something that we would highly suggest if you are hoping to hold on a little longer. So while the original Pixel and Pixel XL helped move Google away from the feeling of an unfinished Nexus series, the Pixel 2 and more specifically the Pixel 2 XL put their Mountain View firm right in the eye of every Android buyer out there. Sure, hindsight is 2020 and there are a number of fatal flaws that creep up on Google seemingly every year with their hardware. The kinks shouldn't be forgiven, but when things are flowing, the experience pushes away niggles and quirks to the side in favour of what was briefly one of the best Android phones to date. By most metrics, it really does hold up well, something that's hard to say of many rival devices released during the same era. All of that poses the question though as to whether you should even still consider the Pixel 2 XL, and we have to say that in all honesty, there are many better newer devices available today that will far more closely align with or suit your specific daily needs now and into the future. Sure, the design might not be as nice, but in reality, the Pixel 4a 5G and even the upcoming Pixel 5a may provide you with a solid option or upgrade. Getting hold of a Pixel 2 XL in good condition is also a tough job, as you're wading into a world of devices that are likely, or at least likely to have been used and abused over the past 3 or so years. With Google set to slap their own chips in the upcoming Pixel 6 hardware, we might finally see a truly worthy upgrade to the fan favourite Pixel 2 XL. We'd have to say, probably about time. With all that said, Pixel 2 and 2 XL fans especially, we want to hear from you though. Is this still the peak Pixel? Let us know your long-term experience, good, bad and ugly, down in the comment section below. But until next time, this is Damien with 9to5Google saying thanks for watching this long-term look at an aging Google Pixel device, and I will speak to you later.